All right. Welcome, everyone, to episode 13, lucky number 13 of APS Radio. I'm here with Joe Terry. My name is Jim Burneka. Joe Terry, once again, welcome.
Thank you, Jim, once again.
Yeah, so I had you back not too long ago on the 25 Live, and then I got to spend quality time with you in exotic Beaver Creek, Ohio, just last month. And I'm getting ready to spend more quality time with you at the end of this month, and we'll get to that later on. But I'm still excited to see you virtually.
It is a pleasure to be here.
All right. So we'll just dive right in. I guess just give me a quick background of who you are, where you grew up, where you live, all that kind of stuff.
So I grew up in Fort Wright, Kentucky. I am back in my parents' home in my childhood bedroom as I'm waiting for my home to be built. Grew up, went to Notre Dame Academy, University of Kentucky, became a physical therapist, met my husband hanging out on UC's campus up in Clifton, and he's a Ludlow boy, a few years older than me, and got married young, 22, to my best friend, and that's the introduction.
And what was this young man's name?
This young man's name was Alan Chip Terry.
Very nice. So the original Chip and Joe, right?
The original.
Yes,
we were the Chip and Joe before that became popular.
You got to deal with that all the time, don't you?
You know, it's funny because we actually did rehab. I mean, I'm working on my 9th or 10th home. Chip and I got married and bought a starter home and rehabbed it and then just kept it up. We just didn't figure out how to make the money the way the rich Chip and Joe got to do it.
Yeah. My wife's a fan of theirs. I don't know, but
they're awesome. And I'll tell you, my Chip was extremely handy and had a quirky sense of humor. Not quite that quirky, but he was a funny guy.
Nice. Now, was Chip already a firefighter when you guys first met?
No, when we met, he was really struggling with what he wanted to do and decided to flunked out NKU once and then went to medic school. He was volunteering for Ludlow Fire and went to medic school. Became a paramedic first. Started out running, the ambulance when the EMS and the, ALS were all separate. So went back to school to get his music degree. At the same time, he was hired on at Covington. So started working at Covington about 6 months before we got married.
Nice. Okay. So you knew the Chip beforehand, and then you knew the Chip throughout his fire career and beyond.
I did. We kind of raised each other. We grew up together. We were so young when we met, and I knew him as a kid, basically. And
speaking of kids, you had a bunch of kids, right?
We have 6, 4 of our own biological children, and then we adopted a sibling set from Haiti after the earthquake in 2010.
Very cool.
So busy household.
Yeah, little bit.
Yeah.
So, all right. So you knew the Chip beforehand, and then the Chip on the job. Did you notice any differences? And if you did, at what point did you start going, wow, my Chip is changing, he's evolving, something's different?
He was 26 years on Covington, retired in 2012. And I would say, the 26 years on the department, he was pretty much the same guy, he was a natural protector, and he actually always put the children and me first. He was always last on his list when it came to wants and needs. Pretty selfless. But with that being said, the man had a temper, and the man, I had his opinions, I guess I should say it that way, right and wrong. And so I lived with that. He was funny. He was just goofy, and he just was great to be around most of the time. With that being said, too, by 2015, I started to see some things changing. Probably the withdrawal, pulling away from me particularly, but there were incidents with our kids where, he let them down. He wasn't there for them when they wanted him to be there. And I saw a guy that got more negative, he just, there were things that really just started to bother him. But that was 3 years after his retirement. So through his 26-year career, he was pretty much the guy I knew. I mean, we all change, we all mature, we grew up. Yeah, but by 2015, 2014, 15, 16, he was a guy that was not so invested in the family life.
I want to go back a little bit and talk about his retirement speech, because that stands out, because we're talking 2012, almost a decade, and it really sticks out what he's saying. And if I have the technology, if I can figure it out, I'd love to actually put some of those clips in this right here.
And there's a lot of talk about our benefits and our pay and all those kind of things. But what people don't see at 3 o'clock in the morning is when a young lieutenant has to put 2 toddlers and their grandmother in a body bag. I've been personally involved in 12 fire fatalities. Not to mention all the thousands and thousands and thousands of runs I've made over 27 years. A 16-year-old boy hangs himself with an electrical cord. How do you close your eyes at night after you do that? You make that run. I've seen people shoot themselves in the head. I've seen children beaten and burned. We are the tip of the spear. We are the people that are out there every day. And I'm so proud of what we accomplished. So, we do have good pay, we do have good benefits, but when we go out into a roach-infested apartment and we're dealing with someone that has some kind of communicable disease, we have to be protected. Not us, we have workers' comp, we have great health, we have all the services that we need. Well, what happens when we go home? We take those things home to our children and our wives. That is the reason we fight so hard for our benefits and our pay and our pension. Today, I can lay down in bed and close my eyes and still see the faces of those toddlers, or the 4-year-old boy I put in a body bag after he drowned in a pool. I can see that. I carry that with me for the rest of my life. And that's not just me. When I say I speak of firefighters, the collective firefighter body of the Covington Fire Department for the past 150 years. So I'm not standing up here. I don't want anybody's pity. The men and women of the fire department don't want anyone's pity. We just want you to understand what we do when you lay your heads on the pillow at night, when your smoke detector goes off, when your little baby's choking, when your husband has a heart attack. We provide the highest level of service anywhere in the country. Our delivery system is the best.
But that video, he's talking about stuff. He's telling truths that are uncomfortable now to some people, but certainly back then, that stuff just wasn't spoken. The stigma was there. the behavioral health, just the mental, just him going on the calls and talk about this stuff. You could tell, I mean, right then in that speech that, I mean, there was some stuff that was deep inside that resonated from those 26 years in Covington.
It did. And, it wasn't impactful at the time. Here we are celebrating his retirement. All of the kids are there. It was a happy day for all of us. And Chip was a very private guy. And, to set the stage, in 2012, Covington had underfunded their pension. And he was walking out the door on a department that he absolutely loved. And they were in a crisis, per se. They were browning out apparatus. They were talking about layoffs. They were talking about closing a house. And that really bothered him because he was such a stickler for doing it the right way and minimum standards. And all of those things were being ignored by people that were making financial decisions. And he was so worried that the staffing issues and the response times were going to cost a life somewhere. And so he used his retirement as a platform to let the city know this is what firemen do. And he made that very clear in that speech, and it brought the emotion out of him. And when he started talking about the body bags with the children and the fire fatalities that he was exposed to, those were runs that were early in his career. And we all knew it. The whole family knew those runs. We could probably tell you the stories because when it came out, those are the ones that he called his demons. And those are the ones that kept him awake at night. And those are the images he could not shake. Now I recognize that as flashbacks and a critical sign, that indicates PTSD. But in 2012, no one said, hey, that guy's dealing with something, Joe. You guys need to get him some help, because we were all unaware of it.
Was he openly talking about some of these runs back then to you?
It would come out like the ones, the school drowning and the toddlers that he put in bags. I knew about those when they happened. Yes. I mean, we talked about them. He didn't share gory details, but we spoke of them, and my kids knew of them because they had heard what it was like. We did a lot of camping down at Red River Gorge and spent a lot of time with our kids around the fire. And those were the stories that, I guess, when he was dealing with this stuff, it would come out. So the older kids were familiar with those stories. Younger ones, not so much.
Okay. So going back to, I guess, moving forward back to, he's retired now. He's still keeping busy. He's still instructing. He's still doing board up, all this kind of stuff. But you mentioned that, you're starting now to see him change, where he was on his career. He was pretty steady, but now he's kind of, I don't know if you want to call bad habits or what, but there's signs and symptoms of something underlying going on. If you want to kind of pick up from there, please.
Well, we were both raised in Catholic families, and we were both exposed to alcohol at all of our family events. We met in a bar, and we celebrated everything with alcohol. And I never assumed or thought that he had a drinking problem. But by 2014, 2015, he was drinking more. And never impaired him from doing any job, ever. always got up the next day and did what he needed to do. It wasn't like he was drinking through the week, but when we'd have that downtime and that time on the weekends to just decompress, alcohol was involved. And I didn't know to the extent, I didn't know how much he was drinking. Because I would go to bed and Chip would say something like, you know, I'm not tired, I can't sleep, I'm going to work in the office, I don't want to disturb you, I'll just sleep on the couch. And so, like, when I teach and when I talk about that, that was very hurtful. You know, that's what Chip was talking about bringing home. When he says in his video, you take these things home to your wives and your children, he's referring to bed bugs and communicable diseases, but you're bringing that PTSD home as well. And that was affecting his relationship with me, because suddenly I'm feeling like I'm not attractive enough to him, or that partnership and that friendship that we had felt like it was eroding. And now I'm getting angry myself and I'm feeling rejected, basically, and didn't handle it properly. And so I became more distant and remote and involved in my own world. So it's one of the biggest regrets I have in my life. You know, had I dug deeper and done the things I teach now, maybe done some kind of marital counseling, we would have uncovered the truth of what was going on with him, but I didn't. And I made the statement to my oldest daughter that I would never leave him, but if he walked out the door, I wouldn't stop him. And that's something I have to live with. And I you know, if I look back on who I am and what I do, in terms of my career as a physical therapist and helping people, and I look at occupational cancers, you know, like you've dealt with, and I know that if I had understood his suffering to be a mental health problem, I would have been a lot more compassionate. Just like if I had known he had an occupational cancer, I would have been the best damn nurse he could have ever wanted. But I didn't do that.
We don't, it seems like we don't treat mental illnesses, injuries, really like an injury, compared to, you know, if I had cancer or I tore yet another ACL, it's just not the same. It's getting better, but I agree. It's we just don't look at it the same way, and we should.
It's a weakness. You're broken. There's something wrong with you.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and it's taboo. You know, we don't want to be surrounded by people we consider weak, or it's like we think we're going to catch it or something, you know, and it doesn't spread. It's not contagious, but we still are afraid of it, and we don't understand it, and that's cost me, you know, cost me, my children, a lot.
So I know you, at some point, you end up getting a phone call from Chip saying he's at University of Cincinnati Hospital.
Mm-hmm.
Can you kind of jump in and take it from there, please?
Yeah, so it was 2017, and we had just had our first grandson. It was the 4th of July. So the 4th of July was on a Tuesday, and we were at my brother's house on Sunday, celebrating with the whole family. And, you know, I can remember it like yesterday. We were on a big swing, rocking and swinging my grandson, and Chip had had too much to drink. And he got kind of teary-eyed, and he said, I have the best life. And he was holding our grandson. One of the few times he actually held him. And, you know, it was like that old guy, that guy that I knew. We were together right next to each other enjoying the evening. We went home that night, and he said, I'm on call for board up tomorrow. I'm going to sleep on the couch. You know, whenever I'm on call, I get called in, so I don't want to disturb you. And by then, I had heard that story so many times. I was like, okay. And I was scheduled to work the next day at a PT clinic. I was the only PT scheduled. So because of the extended weekend, I was the only clinician in. Got up the next morning and he was already gone. But I got to work early and the phone rang and it was Chip. And he said, don't panic. I was suicidal. And I had taken myself to the 15th Street train trestle, which was 12 blocks from our house. And he had intended to hang himself. But while he was on the trestle, he had this brief moment of clarity where he didn't want his ducks to find him because we lived in the city. So he scrambled down the hill, got back in his vehicle, and he drove to UC, checked himself into the ER at the University of Cincinnati, and got belligerent because they were taking too long. And they ended up restraining him and putting him in a straitjacket, sending him over to UC Psych. And that's where he was calling me from. So he was on a 72-hour hold at that point. And he said, whatever you do, don't tell anybody. You can't get in to see me. I can't get out. I'll be calling you to let you know what's going on next. So I didn't tell anybody. I told one of his coworkers who was a retired Cincinnati firefighter. And I told my oldest daughter, my youngest son, and that was it. The next day I was made aware of his transfer to an inpatient facility. And I went over and met them there. And that's where I saw him for the first time. And honestly, Jim, like he's 6'2" and was just this broken shell of a man. His eyes were just, broken. He was blank. And he said, I am so sorry. And I was like, don't, So we had our first psychiatric evaluation, and the psychiatrist leads with, you have a guardian angel. Men your age are rarely capable of stopping themselves when they get this far. And I'm going to take good care of you. And that's what I heard. And then Chip proceeds to say, Doc, I'm a career firefighter, and I've been reading a lot because Chip read all the time. And he said, I think I have PTSD. And that was a shock to me. Like, PTSD, that's military. Where did that come from? You weren't in war. I was really ignorant of the diagnosis. And the doc repeated himself and said, I'm going to take good care of you. So I put him on antidepressants, told him to quit drinking, and they scheduled him for an IOP. And within a day, he was discharged, came back home, and he did exactly what they said. He quit drinking cold turkey, just like that. And he took his medication as prescribed, and he attended his IOP. So he went from the west side of Cincinnati to work every morning, 5:30, did his day's work, crossed traffic to the east side for his IOP, and I attended the family sessions with him, and I heard him repeat himself on several occasions that he was a career firefighter and he felt like he was dealing with PTSD. But at home, this went on for 9 weeks. At home, I saw the old Chip coming back. He laughed, he was engaged. He helped my son, find an apartment. He was working. We had several trips, the two of us, just by ourselves. So I saw that emotional connection again. I saw, our intimacy was revived. I thought, we do have a guardian angel. And so he completed his 12 weeks, whatever it was. We had our 31st wedding anniversary on the 6th. He finished his IOP on the 9th. And by the 15th, he bought a gun and walked the flood wall and shot himself. And I mean, I was completely caught off guard. I thought we had our chip back. And what I found out was that his IOP was for substance use disorder. And then later reviewed the medical records, and there's not one mention of PTSD. There's not one assessment for trauma. And it was just completely medical mistake, in my opinion.
So it sounds like they were treating the alcohol, but they never got to the reason why he was really drinking that much.
No. Not one person.
Completely missed the dual diagnosis.
Completely. And, you know, if this had been Eastern Kentucky in the gorge where we hung out so much, or, you know, 1986 when he started, it would have been different, you know, but this was 2017. And by that time, the UC Center of Excellence was already open. The IFF Center, UC Stress Center and the IFF Center of Excellence were both open, accepting first responders with PTSD. And multiple clinicians in our area were available to treat this diagnosis, but we were never given the right direction.
And that right there is essentially what you're doing now. So
What I'm trying to do. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think it's a perfect lead in to just talk about the Chip Terry Fund and what your whole focus is right now, because I know it's just you went through all that stuff, and you, looking back in hindsight, you could see where things could have been different if you would have had the information, if you would have known. And so it's now your job to educate everyone on what you didn't know, to make sure that they don't have the same issues.
That's what I'm trying to do. You know, after I read and studied and got a glimpse of what PTSD was, I thought, wow, I can't keep this information to myself. You know, our community was really hurting, and it wasn't just my family, it was the Covington Fire Department. It touched people that I didn't know all over the tri-state area. And so I decided to form the nonprofit with the kids, and we were going to have a PTSD awareness seminar. I didn't know enough about it at the time, so I brought people in from the East Coast and the West Coast who were experts. And we did a one-day presentation in Covington on the anniversary of his death. And they shared the knowledge about PTSD. And I was able to provide them with resources, both local and national, that I had found. So when that was over, I thought, well, I'm done. I'm finished. I gave back. Now I'm just going to take my grief and try to figure out what to do with it. So within 3 months of the seminar, I had my first phone call from another spouse whose husband was suicidal. They had 2 young boys. And she said, I don't know what to do. And I offered, you know, I think I would take him to the Center of Excellence, but he wouldn't go. So I said, well, will he go if I go with him? And he said, yes. So with the funds that we had left over from our seminar, I ended up meeting him at the airport, bought our plane tickets, arranged the pickup at the airport with the Center of Excellence. And I flew, and I met another 6'4", handsome, rugged firefighter with the same broken expression that Chip had. And 2 months after that, I had another call and then another call. And before I knew it, I was flying up to Maryland with first responders, making sure that they arrived safely. And it grew. It just started to grow. And currently, the nonprofit has helped over 26 individuals get into inpatient care. We help with financial support. We help with family support if they need it. We've done it for law enforcement. We've done it for fire. If we've done it for medics, if you can't make it to the IFF Center of Excellence, I'll find you a place to go. We're at about 70 that we've helped with local resources, wherever their community might be. We've worked in Florida, we've worked in Georgia, helped in Minnesota recently. So you reach out, we'll find a way to help you get what you need.
Perfect. I did this to you last time we talked, and I thought it was important to do, and just because I know we'll have a new audience with this. I thought, and I was wrong, by the way, but I thought for the longest time when somebody committed suicide that they were being selfish. And I'm sure I'm not the only one that's thought that too, but having, just like you, learned so much about this, I know that's not the case. I know that that individual a lot of times feels like they are a burden, and everybody will be better off without them. With that being said, you being the one that's left here, and your family, could you kind of talk about how that is, it's not that way, that you would rather them be here and work all this stuff out than, because they weren't a burden, and you're not better off without them.
Yeah.
I know that's a crazy way of trying to ask, and I don't even know if I asked a question in there, but I know you know where I'm going with that.
I have heard that by so many people. In fact, I was told that by a widow whose husband died of occupational cancer, firefighter out of Florida. And at a spouse event we had down there, her comment was, "I have no compassion for the firefighters who commit suicide, because my husband worked so hard to live and they gave up." And I'm telling you what, that cut me deeper than anything anyone's ever said to me. She has no idea how hard these individuals fight to stay alive. And Chip asked, he did what we're supposed to do. He asked for help, and we let him down. And the suicide note that I share when I teach talks about the pain that he's living with, and that the others like him are suffering from. And he loved me and those 6 kids more than he loved life. Because, again, he was concerned that he was going to mess this all up. So, in some regard, some people are trying to be selfless. The bottom line is the trauma that some of these first responders have been exposed to over the course of their career has caused so much damage to their brain and has injured it so far that they cannot grasp there's any relief out there for them. And that's not true. That is the message we need to share. That this injury, this thing called PTSD, does not need to be terminal. It can be managed. I don't believe it can be cured. You can never go back to where we were when we were in our 20s, but it is certainly manageable at all of the stages. And the first responders I talk to and their families, they deserve so much more than what Chip got and what I got.
You
I
know,
don't know if I answered your question.
you,
I don't know.
I don't know if I asked a question, but
I don't know
I
where we
know
went with that.
I know you knew what I was trying to get across, and
Yes.
and thank you for that. And I'm also sorry as well.
I know you are.
You know, I know you can't take things back, but I mean, you are truly out there trying to make a positive out of something that was really, really, really terrible. You know, I know I said earlier on, you um, came out to Beaver Creek and taught at the Brothers Helping Brothers conference. And I haven't gone over this with you yet, but I had some of the comments I wanted to read to you. So just indulge me if you don't mind. And this is just a sampling, but just to kind of show you truly the difference you're making. So really appreciated Joe Terry sharing her pain with us. Having been on the scene of many suicides, it was good to see it through the perspective of the surviving spouse. Unbelievable. Her insight and willingness to share has changed my thoughts on all this. No words, amazing, resilient woman, and I am moved by her.
Yeah.
Absolutely heartbreaking, yet undeniably honest. Thank you for sharing your family story. There's so much to learn from it. Pure courage, inspiring to the highest level. Great presentation. I have heard her story several times and always take something away from it. Thank you. First time hearing her message. What an amazing woman to retell the story of her husband's loss. Wow. And this is another comment. Sorry. Wow. Something special happened this conference during her talk. Incredible. Wow. Just wow. My heart exploded for her. I loved hearing Chip's story from the source. Joe was phenomenal, to say the least. Her presentation authenticity was full of passion and compassion. Somebody says they wish they could give you an 11. The nice Spinal Tap reference. Very brave for Joe to deliver her presentation. Every firefighter and first responder should hear her message. So, and they go on and on, Joe. You were, you and Pat Kenny both, everybody loved and was so impactful. And I'm excited because you're going to be coming to my department here at the end of this month. The first outside speaker we've had in my career to really talk about this, because it's desperately needed here.
You know, Chip loved the fire service. He loved the brotherhood and sisterhood. And I have a passion for that too. Basically, we grew up in it. And you all deserve more than what we're giving you. You go to work, and I know it's a job. And I take away that Superman persona. You guys are just individuals who are doing something that the rest of us can't do. And you don't get paid well. You don't become extremely rich doing it. And it takes its toll on you physically and we care for you physically, the message needs to be out there that we as a community, as a fire department, as a city, as a county, as a state, need to take care of your mental health as well. Because you all deserve to go home at the end of a day, at the end of a week, at the end of a career, fully intact, mentally and physically. Because when you aren't, we're splintering and breaking apart all of these other relationships, your spouse, your children. It's not fair to you, and it's not fair to the families either. So I will carry this message wherever I'm asked to go. If it's received and we can make a change, then one day I can put my job away and retire and say, I did it for Chip.
That's awesome. And if you're looking for somebody, hopefully you're warm, because she likes to go someplace when it's warm right now, right?
Love to go warm.
Started snowing today. So
yeah.
Oh, would you mind telling everybody where they can find more information on you and not you, but the Chip Terry Fund?
We're on Facebook, the Chip Terry Fund. Our website, info at thechipterryfund.org is email. You Google the Chip Terry Fund, you'll find us. We're out there. I answer the emails personally. It looks like you're addressing Nick, which is my daughter, but it really comes right to me. And if you need help, if you're looking for help, if you're looking for resources, I've learned how to track it down, and I'd be happy to find it for you in whatever corner of the world you might be. And if you need the financial support, that's what the fund is there for too.
Awesome. Well, I guess it's time to get you out of here. I know you and I are both ready for bed, but the words don't say enough about how much I appreciate you as just, as a peer and a friend. And I mean, it's when I had this problem kind of thrown in my lap here, I mean, no pressure, but you were the solution. So, I encourage all other fire departments to look into this too, whether it's Joe or anybody else. We train and we do our ropes and we do our, everything, all of our other trainings are fire denial, but we just don't train about ourselves. We don't take care of ourselves, whether it's cancer or exercise, nutrition, and certainly not our mental health.
Yeah.
So,
and you deserve it. And Jim, you have become such a good friend of mine. I appreciate everything you're doing to help me share this message. It's a message that we need to share, and as long as somebody wants to hear it, I'm here to do it. And I just thank you so much for helping get it out there.
Well, I'm glad. All I had to do is buy a mic, and they gave me a show. It's crazy.
You do awesome.
It works.
I appreciate it.
It works. So let's get out of here, Joe. Once again, Joe Terry. I'm Jim Burneka, and we'll see you and talk to you next month.
Thank you.